Hey everyone, welcome back to the Showing Up to Your Life podcast and YouTube channel. My name is Art Burns and I am just thrilled, as always, to be here with you today to talk about some really important aspects of this work that we talk about here, right? All week we have talked about the sort of, the pillars of what I consider to be the pillars of mindfulness, which is presence, acceptance, compassion, and curiosity. And of course, we went in the reverse order, right? I did that kind of purposely, but because I wanted to illustrate the fact that there is no beginning and no end, right? Like these four things, they do operate as a cycle, right? And I've mentioned that in a few of the videos yesterday, which, by the way, let's talk about yesterday's video. Oh my goodness, I had no idea. I don't know if it's because I just love this microphone so much that I don't know. I have this newfound passion for talking here. And I did an episode yesterday. It was 47 minutes long. I couldn't believe it. That is absolutely by far the longest podcast and video I've done since starting this, nearly 2 years ago now. And and so I give you all the credit in the world if you sat through and enjoyed all 47 minutes of yesterday's video or podcast. So if you did, let me know, okay? And really let me know that. And by the way, it's a question I've been meaning to ask all of you about is, I do love to talk, and I love to talk about these things, and I don't see that as a fault in me. I'm sure some people would consider it a fault, but I don't, and that's going to tie into what we're talking about today. But let me know if you prefer a shorter video or a shorter audio, right? I've had some people have told me that no, like the perfect time is about 30 minutes, and that's great. I would love to hear from more people. So if you could, just drop me a little line. Just shoot me an email, art@artburnscoaching.com, or just comment on the YouTube. I don't know that you can comment on the podcast platforms, but if you find a way to comment there, just comment there, and I'm sure I'll see it somehow. But I would love to know if these videos and podcasts are maybe a little too long, a little too short, what have you. But yeah, yesterday certainly got away from me. I always aim for about 25 to 30 minutes. That's my sort of target. But again, and I don't know if it's because I'm also doing it on a computer now instead of with my phone. On the phone, I guess I could keep an eye on how much time has gone by a little easier. So what I've done today, give you a little behind the scenes look here. I now have a stopwatch going so I can tell how long I've been going here. Because I don't want to make these too long that nobody listens to them. That's really important that you are getting the value out of what I'm saying here. It's not just for me to talk here. So if you feel like a shorter video, or maybe you feel like longer videos are better, let me know. I really would appreciate that feedback. All right. And so, yeah, getting back to, what I just said before, a few minutes ago, if I look at my stopwatch, it was probably about 48 seconds ago. I said that, yes, I do have a propensity to speak a lot, right? And it comes across in my writing as well. Like when I do a first draft of something I'm writing, I usually have to cut that thing in half by the time I'm done with it, right? Because I am a very verbose person, and it's just the way I am. And you know what? I love me. And I love the way I am. And even though my verbosity does sometimes get in the way and create 47-minute videos where I wanted them to be 27 minutes, I still love myself, right? And what this does is this allows me to move forward with openness and with curiosity, to get better, right? Because if I think that for some reason my verbosity is a failing of mine or some sort of really negative quality of mine, well, then I'm less likely to be curious about it. I'm less likely to be able to grow through the process. Right? I'm more likely to abandon a process or to do something that is going to be otherwise, damaging to myself, right? And that's what self-compassion is all about. And that's what we want to talk about today, okay? Now, I know Look, I know I talk a lot about self-compassion, and in fact, I did an episode just last Thursday on what I called reframing failure through self-compassion, right? Which is kind of what I just mentioned here too. But here's the thing, right? I could do an episode on self-compassion every single day, and you know what? You would be better off for it, right? Like you would not miss a thing if all I talked about was self-compassion, because self-compassion really is that important. Pardon me. As we've talked about throughout this week, right? I keep mentioning this, and a new image came to my mind. Yes, I'm really excited to share this with you. But all week I've been talking about how we are the movie of our lives, right? We are the blank canvas that's gessoed by the artist and ready to express something, right? But you know what? I have two clients who I work with right now that are both in IT, right? So they're very technical people, right? And as I was pondering these beautiful, wonderful people in my life, I realized that the word that I've really been searching for is the interface. Right? We are the interface between that which is happening inside of us and that which is happening outside of us, right? Without getting too woo-woo or hippy-dippy, airy-fairy about it, we could also say that we are the interface between the spiritual existence, right? What happens, inside of us, spiritually, and the material world, right? We are the interface between those two things, right? And spirituality in this context is just that which is not material, right? That's all I mean by saying spirituality, right? I don't want you to think we're getting too woo-woo here. Unless you want to get woo-woo, I can get woo-woo if you want to, but but anyway, the idea though is that that's what we are, right? We are the interface. And so if there are, just like a window, right? If you have a window that is all smudged and dirty, it's going to make it very hard to see either inside or outside. And so therefore the interface is going to be, not clear. It's going to be damaged. It's going to be filled with interference, right? And therefore we're not going to be able to get a clear picture, right? We're not going to really know what's going on either internally or externally. And so when we practice presence, acceptance, compassion, and curiosity, what we're doing is we're clearing that interface. We're clearing that window so that we can easily see through very clearly and very accurately to see what is actually happening both internally and externally. Right? And so why does self-compassion mean so much, right? And it really does. I say compassion before, and the reason why I wanted to do an extra episode today on self-compassion, because a lot of times, and this is borne out in exhaustive research that is unambiguous, right? That shows that it's something like, out of thousands of people who took a survey conducted by Dr. Kristen Neff and her colleagues, they found that out of thousands of people who took a survey, right, and participated in this study, that like 86% of people are willing to offer compassion for others, but not for themselves, right? And so that's why it's really important to understand that compassion doesn't just mean compassion for others, and it also doesn't just mean compassion for ourselves. It means compassion. It means compassion all around, right? And that's what I illustrated the other day, how compassion is this 360-degree cycle, right, that happens. It happens, I can be compassionate for you, and in being compassionate for you, I'm actually being compassionate for me. And likewise, if I'm compassionate for me, I am going to automatically be a little more compassionate to you, or maybe more than a little more. And so that's the value here, right? Now, the other reason I wanted to talk about this today, self-compassion specifically, is because, all the things that I'm talking about in this podcast, right, and in these YouTube videos here, right, they are all centered around a process of improvement, right? Like we're when the people who are listening to this, you and all the other people who are listening to this podcast and watching this video, I hope that I'm inspiring you to take a little bit of a journey with this work, right? To do the work to help to come to a better understanding of yourself internally, spiritually, and yourself as is reflected in the material world around you, right? I hope that this is inspiring you to do that, right? To go on that sort of journey to understand this aspect of life a little bit more, because it's not automatic, and I use the word counterintuitive a lot in these episodes because that's what it is, right? We are not taught to worry about these things. We are not taught to understand these things. We're taught to go out and make, earn a living. We're taught to, work hard and buy houses and buy cars and buy, clothes and all this kind of stuff. And again, it's not that the houses and the cars and the clothes are the problem. It's not the problem at all. There's nothing wrong with having a beautiful house, beautiful car, beautiful clothes, whatever you want. There's nothing wrong with having multiple houses and going on huge vacations and all that. I hope the best for you. I hope you do that all the time if that's what makes you happy, or if that contributes to your happiness, right? But the thing is that those things alone are not enough. The house or the car or the clothes, without this sort of understanding and without the happiness that happens within us, is just a house, just a clothes, just a car. It's not going to bring you happiness. The happiness comes from inside. Right? And so once we're happy and we have a house and clothes and cars and all that stuff, well, then they don't do any problem, right? But the person who does not have happiness inside of them and seeks that happiness through the cars and the house and the clothes and all these things, well, what they're going to do is they're going to wind up with less happiness, right? Because they're going to wind up with more stress, because, there's only so much satisfaction we can get from those things, right? You buy something new, it's only new for a period of time, right? And it's a pretty brief period of time, in fact. And once it's not new anymore, now the happiness is gone. The happiness that it provided you is gone. But not only is it just the absence of happiness, the happiness is replaced by a sense of fear. What's the next thing? Where am I going to get happiness from now? Right? Where am I going to find it? Help me, help me. And now I'm in stress. And now I'm damaging my body, and now I'm feeling really, really bad, and having a lot of suffering happen in my body and in my mind, right? And so it's the internal happiness. It's the optimizing this thing, this body that we're walking around in, right? It's optimizing this as an interface between my desire and my fulfillment, which is an internal spiritual concept, and the external material things like the house, the car, the boat, the clothes, all that stuff, right? And so one without the other is just thin and just again going to wind up with more stress. It's not only just not happy, it's actually anti-happy. Right? It's taking away happiness. It's encroaching on the space inside of us that should be happy, and instead it's leaving us with anger and resentment, and oftentimes that anger and resentment is directed towards ourselves. Right? Especially in the sense when we're not doing this work and we're trying to pin our happiness onto these external things in our lives, right? The new phone, the new clothes, the new gadget that I'm buying, the new microphone, right? Like this microphone is not really what's making me happy. I love it. I love the way it makes me sound. I love talking with it. It makes me feel more professional. It makes me feel wonderful things. But it has nothing at all to do with my happiness. Right? And I will be happy if the microphone is gone, right? Like, as you know, I did 420 different episodes without a microphone, and I could have done 420 more without a microphone. Doesn't mean that I'm not happy to have the microphone, but it means that the microphone is not where my happiness, it does not represent my happiness. It does not cause my happiness. My happiness is caused and represented by the ability of that I have to be present with what I'm doing, to accept the fact that sometimes I have a microphone, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I do a great episode, sometimes I don't. Right? Sometimes I lose track of the time and do a 47-minute video. Other times it ends exactly at the right time. Right? And so that's the thing. I can't control any of that. right? That stuff is all beyond my control, right? I did not make somebody get this microphone for me, right? I had no control over that part of the world that was happening. But what I do have control over, and I always will have control over, is how I respond to these things, right? And that's what this work is all about. And so I'm hoping that I'm inspiring some of you to move forward with this work and to develop this skill, the skill of your own well-being and the skill of your own happiness. But I hope also that by this point you understand that developing this skill, yes, it involves work, but it's happy work. It's very fulfilling work. It's work that feels really good. It's almost like, like your job is to go get a massage every day. Like that's how good it feels once you get going, right? So it's not work in the sense of toil, but it is effort. It does require some effort, and it requires some activity, right? It requires doing something. Right? It's not a passive thing that we're talking about. It's an active process of developing this skill, right? Because the only way to develop skill is through practice. And that's true with, heartfulness, mindfulness, riding a bike, learning to eat, learning to walk, learning to do a YouTube channel, learning to hook up and work a microphone, right? Everything. Every single skill that you possess right now, at first, before you tried it, you were not good at it. And the way that you got good at it was through practice. And the reason I bring that up is because for a lot of people, what we're doing, and this is true for me, okay, this was true a few years ago when I first started this work, it was a lot of work. And you know what? There was a lot of failure involved along the way. Right? I often, pardon me, I got this tickle in my throat. I often tell the story about my wife, after I'd been working on mindfulness for about a year, right? And there were moments where it was like, whoa, this is what life can be. Like, wow, amazing, awesome. Let's do more, and this is how everybody around me felt too. At the time I was a small business owner, and my employees were like, dude, whatever you're doing, keep it up because this is amazing. I'd walk into stores and people I'd run into somebody I know, like at the health food store, right? And standing online, they turn to me and be like, dude, you are glowing. What is going on with you? There was these beautiful moments, right? But then there was also moments, like one story that I like to tell, that one day while my wife and I were taking the kids out to a park, we rode our bicycles to a park just to kind of, play a little bit. And I was in this place of I had lost it all of a sudden. I just had reverted back to who I had been, right? And yes, there was a lot of stress at that moment in my life. There was, particular things were going on, right? And at one point, my wife turned to me and she looked me right in the eye and she said, "You are not who you've become anymore, and it sucks." And that was a huge wake-up call for me, right? Because what I realized in that moment was that even though I was trying to do the practices to the best of my ability, and I will admit that at that time, I had dropped off on my practices a little bit, right? I had allowed the stress of life and the calamity of life, the catastrophe that life is, and I had let it kind of pull me away from doing my daily practice. And so I was slipping, and I was slipping back into my old ways. And it did suck. It sucked for me and it sucked for those around me. And so in that moment, right, and this is where the self-compassion, this is what I'm trying to tell you here, is that in that moment, right, I could have beat myself up for it. I could have said, you know what, you are a failure. You're terrible. You'll never get this right. All these kind of things that I could have told myself and probably would have told myself. And at that time, I probably did say those things, right? Because I wasn't that much into the self-compassion at that point. This was early on in the process, right? But here's the thing, right? If I tell myself those things, right? If I tell myself that I'm no longer if I'm no good at this, I'm not, this is never going to work for me. I'm going to fail at this every time I try. Why do I even bother? If I start saying those things, what am I going to do, right? I'm likely to give up. I'm likely to walk away from it. And I'm likely to just slip back into that way of living that honestly, I mean, for me, it was really bad. It was really scary stuff. I mean, I probably would be divorced by now. I probably would be in very bad health by now. I mean, I lost 100 pounds along the way and dropped my blood pressure by like 40 points. Right? And so by abandoning it, I could have really, I mean, it's no overstatement to say that it could have resulted in my death. Literally. But with self-compassion, just like I said last week, when we look at self-compassion, or we look at failure through the lens of self-compassion, well, then failure doesn't seem like an end result of something. It doesn't seem like a finality. Instead, it seems like just a point in the process in which I am learning and increasing my ability, honing my skills. Right, because like I talked about, right, so the when we talk about presence and we talk about acceptance, these, and even curiosity, right, these are things that address the internal turmoil, right? Because remember, there's something that's happening inside of us, and then there's something that's happening outside of us, right? And we are that interface between the two. And so what happens is the ability to be present and the ability to be accepting of what we find in that present moment, and the ability to let go of the expectations and the way that things should be and things like this, right? That is how we can regulate ourselves internally, right? Like the way that we process things on an internal basis, right? That's what those practices address. Right. And then the compassion for others addresses that same aspect, but the way people interact with us. Right. So, that son of a, I don't like the way that person is. No. We're getting rid of that. Right. Because that alone is creating the same levels of stress that the absence of presence and acceptance are producing internally. Right. And so self-compassion is really fascinating, because self-compassion is like the way that we talk to each other as though we're an outside person, right? Like, because that's the thing, right? There's the self, right? The person who I can see the way I'm talking to myself, right? So it's almost like there's two different people inside of me, right? And so when that person who is doing the talking, right, when that person is talking to me in a way that is not kind, is not friendly, is not supportive, is not loving, well, then that's just like all those people out there, right, who are causing me all kinds of stress, right? And so when I can switch that and I can get that person inside of me to talk to me in a kind way, in a supportive way, in a loving way, well, now, again, what that does is that decreases the interference and the static that is represented by emotional overwhelm and the stress that comes with it, right? The big emotions like fear, anger, shame, guilt, jealousy, resentment. All of these big emotions, they cause a lot of noise inside of us. And that noise makes it really hard, again, really hard to really see what is happening as it's happening in the present moment. And therefore, it brings on judgment. And once we're in that, now we're in the aversion and the clinging, which is right back to square one. So in other words, to put it simply, self-compassion is so important to this work because it allows you to keep going with the work. And it allows you to fail a little bit and to stumble and to screw up. And it allows you to do that in a way that is healthy and constructive, in a way that you can learn from and you can grow from. Right? So there's a great term that somebody told me not too long ago. I think I read it on Facebook from one of my friends or something. It said, grow through what you go through. Right? And what that means is that every opportunity, as I've been saying all week, right? Life is made up of a series of moment-to-moment experiences. And each one of those moments is an opportunity for us to come back to what makes us happy, which is, again, internal. Not the iPhone, not the car, not the bracelet, not the ring. No, it's internal. It's the ability to be present, to be accepting, to be letting go, and to be compassionate. And overall, to be curious. And that's the way it works, folks. And that's how important self-compassion is, right? And now, how do we cultivate self-compassion, right? There's many different ways to do it. Now, the first way that I recommend for people to do is to just start speaking kindly to yourself. And you can do this in a very deliberate, intentional, and methodical way. It doesn't feel sexy and blissful necessarily all the time, but it works. It works really, really well. And all it requires is, set a timer, just like this one I got on my phone right here, right? Set a timer to go off, say, 4 times a day. And spread it out as much as you can. So once in the morning, once, maybe around lunchtime, once maybe around dinner time, once maybe just before you go to bed. And during that time, just pause for a moment. You might check in with your body a little bit, check in with your emotions. That's part of another practice. I can certainly, if you're interested in learning more about this, send me an email and I'll teach you about this. But really all it requires to develop self-compassion is to simply pause, again, like 4 times a day, and just take a few moments as you're pausing and just speak kindly to yourself. Okay. Now I have a series of phrases that I'm more than happy to share with you. I think I've said this in previous episodes. So all you got to do is send me an email or get in touch with me anyway, comment, whatever, and I'll send you this in writing. Okay. But it's very simple. Okay. I use 6 different phrases and my clients use these phrases too. Everybody loves it. It works really, really well. Okay. May I be well. May I be free from suffering. May I be free from fear and insecurity. May I be forgiven for my mistakes and my misdeeds. May I feel loved. May I be happy. Okay, I promise you, if you repeat those phrases to yourself, say you repeat them each 4 times, each round you repeat it 4 times. So do that, what I just did, do that 3 more times, and then do that 4 sets a day. Okay, I promise you, if you do that, within a few weeks, you're going to start to change the way in which you speak to yourself. And it's going to go from it's going to go from saying things like, you dummy, you jerk, why are you always doing this? What's the matter with you? It's going to go from that to saying, oh man, it's another tough one, isn't it? We really stepped in it this time, didn't we? Oh gosh, we're going to learn though. We're learning from this. We're learning from the error. We're learning from this pain that we're feeling right now. And so it's okay. Let's just keep going. And my friends, the difference, and especially as we're trying to do this work, okay, this becomes so much more vital. But in any area of your life, right, like this way of talking to yourself is going to be helpful. Okay, there's lots of studies. Again, Dr. Neff and her colleagues, she has a colleague at Harvard they're doing amazing work in this field, right? For 20 years, they've been doing amazing work in this field, 15, 20 years, something like that. And what she has found through lots and lots of research, okay, and I'm talking about hard-nosed scientific research, right? She is finding that self-compassion, right, speaking to yourself the way I just did, right? Like, it's okay, we really screwed up, but we're learning and we're going to get it better. Right? To do that kind of thing, as opposed to, I can't believe you screwed up again. You are just so dumb. You never cease to amaze me of how dumb you are, right? Because that's how we say it, right? Let's be honest with each other, right? I'm sure you've talked to yourself in those kind of terms before, because everybody, or at least like 90% of the population does, right? And so doing the former as opposed to the latter, right? Being kind and compassionate as opposed to punishing and hard on yourself, it is very clearly seen to increase resilience, increase optimism, increase happiness and fulfillment, increase life satisfaction, right? And it decreases anxiety, stress, depression, perfectionism, body image, maladaptive image of our body, right? Like just looking in the mirror and being, how'd you get so fat kind of thing, right? Instead saying, wow, your body has a lot of, you've put on some weight because of everything that's been going on, but you're still beautiful. Right? And it's not a lie either, folks. It's not. You are beautiful. It's not, just like it's not the iPhone that makes you happy. It's not having a perfect body that makes you beautiful either. What makes you beautiful is the ability to be present and to be compassionate to others and to be accepting of others. That's what makes you beautiful. And no amount of dieting or no amount of punishing yourself for eating too many Oreo cookies can ever change that. I hope you enjoyed this. Now we're right at 29:58, 59:30. Look at that. What a perfect time. See, I knew I could do it. I wish you all so much wellness, and I wish you so much love, and I wish you so much satisfaction. And I just want you to know once again, real quick, I really appreciate you. I appreciate every single person who is attached to ears and eyes who are experiencing this work right now. If you're hearing my voice or you're watching my image, I really appreciate you, and I want you to know that. And I wish you a very happy weekend. I wish you a very prosperous day. I wish you all the beautiful things that you want in your, not the beautiful things like houses and cars and all that stuff, but I wish you all the happiness and all the self-love. So if there's anything I can do to help clear any of this up or to give you any of the practices that I talk about here, all you got to do is get me on, get a hold of me. Okay. You can do that either in an email. You can do it by commenting on the videos. You can do it through Patreon. If you want to become a patron and maybe contribute a little bit every month to just support this work that I'm doing, you can get to me. We can message each other right through Patreon, or you can go to my website, artburnscoaching.com, at the bottom of every single page, there's a banner that has a clock on it. It says free, schedule a free call or something like that. Click the button, follow the directions. In 3 minutes or less, you and I will be booked for a meeting that will not cost you a dime, but could literally change your life. So I hope to hear from you. All right, everybody. Have a great day. I wish you well, and I'll be back again on Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody. Take care.